My life was changed in a moment of 16 hours flight, but I realized much later. Guests of honor, ladies and gentlemen, today I feel extremely privileged to share with you my stories and experiences as a new immigrant, which perhaps occur to a majority of immigrants every day, but mostly they go unheard of. But with them, I try to discover a better sense out of these playful situations, which enabled me to brave the rigors of integration and the teething troubles of settlement in this society, than to feel miserable and be nostalgic of the past. Ladies and gentlemen, let me share some of those with you so that you could understand how it feels like when the shoe pinches and where it pinches, particularly when you know the shoe is new as well as branded. When I landed in Canada, the very next day, my urge was to find a friend who could be of help and assistance to me, as this is a natural desire. I walked out of my apartment. I was holding the address of that person in my hand, and I went out. I saw a lady. I asked her, "Hey, excuse me, would you please help me?" She said, "Oh yeah, what's that?" I presented that piece of paper. I was looking for directions. She, after having a brief look at it, she returned to me. She said, "You know what?" I said, "What?" I thought, she's a local, she must be going. "I'm so sorry. I wish I could tell you, but I'm so sorry. I'm so extremely sorry." This was something I was not exposed to. This is my first encounter with a local Canadian. Such a dramatized apology. What a melodramatic sense of humor. I never knew that. Oh, that put me on the defensive. Did I say something wrong? Was it impolite? I had heard that Canadians are very kinky about sounding polite or impolite. So this was my first interaction. I was on the defense, and I asked her, "Hey, are you fine? You seem to be psyched out. Should I call 911 or hospital administration?" Because this much I had learned in a day. If there's a situation like that, you can always call these people. And on hearing that, she freaked out and she walked away. But that, you know what, that left me with the thinking, was it not the right way of asking for an address? But life didn't stop. It had yet to go ahead. In order to be mobile in Calgary, I needed transport pass in order to be able to connect with people. I knew that there was Calgary Transit office downtown, so I got the application form, everything done up. I went there, presented my paper to the lady who was sitting there. I presented my driver's license plus all information completed on the piece of paper, and she, after having looked at that, very gorgeous lady for sure, she said, "You know, you have a different address on driver's license and you have an entirely different address here." I said, "Yeah, I know that, because when at that time when I got this done, I was living in Rundle. Now I moved to Whitehall, but still this is Calgary." She said, "But it has to be the same." I said, "But in any case," she said, "Okay, you call your service provider and get us the new address." I said, "But it has to be this apartment, this house, that avenue, but still in Calgary. I cannot avail this while being a resident of Drumheller, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat." She didn't listen. She said, "Wow, I thought that I should not waste my pearls of wisdom on her." So I just walked away and went again at the back of the queue, waiting for my turn to pass. And this time the destiny presented me to another lady. Gorgeous again. I presented the same stuff. She looked at it. She asked me the same question. I returned the same answer. But you know what? This time sanity prevailed, and she issued me without any question further. I grabbed it and swaggered past with a brief look at the lady who was sitting there. But that left me thinking, is it important? Is it the protocol important or the perspective of the person important? I realized that perspective is more important. But you see that when we come to different parts of the world, it's your culture where you came from and the new culture. They always keep following you wherever you go. As I came here, the most important thing I had was I had an identity crisis, which though it's a melting pot in the words of John F. Kennedy. But I came here and I realized that the Canadians they refer to a certain stock of people as Asians, and they were invariably from Japan, from China, and the Philippines or people from Laos. And I had difficult time to explain that, look, I am also from Asia. If you have any trust on the map, it's just there. They say, you know what? How do you look like? How do I look like? You look like an Indian. That India in South Asia. Oh, really? I didn't realize. I was not happy on both sides of the divide. But soon I realized that people of Canada, on the top of their mind, the sense of geography, it revolves around the Mexican and the Caribbean delights and the comforts where they are vacationing more often than not. Life didn't stop here. The most important thing in Canada was, like any new immigrant, is to find a job. After much hectic efforts, I successfully landed an interview. I was very happy because this was something related to what I was doing back home. I presented myself in the interview. I was sure I did an impressive job. After a few days, I got a call from the lady. She said, you were not selected. Oh, hold on, please. May I ask you further? What happened? I was sure that I did an impressive job. I answered all the questions. She said, yeah, no, you did it absolutely fantastic. We appreciate it. But you know what? You failed to put up eye contact with me. And she was a woman. I said, oh, you know what? The last time I had a full eye contact with the lady, she turned out to be my wife at the end. And she's sitting here. And you know, she was not prepared for that. And she said, oh, really? I said, well, you know, in my part of the world, it's impolite to have an eye contact with a lady that you are not familiar with. And here, it was entirely different. And now I realized why Canadians enjoy eye contact. Now I do pretty much the same. And I also told her, you know, that having eye contact with an unfamiliar woman, that places an abnormal stress on my testosterone, which is totally uncalled for at a place of job like this. It is the job. So another thing I observed and that came to me, ladies and gentlemen, this bogey of Canadian work experience and your paid job and volunteer job, I was very happy to get this job because I realized all my lifelong effort of more than 10 years in a particular field of work, that was rendered totally irrelevant the moment I arrived here. They think, no, you have to have a Canadian work. I had to tell them I was dealing with the people of the same vital statistics, same qualities of head and heart back home. They were human beings, not witches or ghosts or apparitions or supernatural or extraterrestrial, same thing. No. Okay, fine, no problem. I was a smooth worker. I went there, I got one. Started doing, and after a while, I had an interview. And the HR lady, she said, okay, Mr. Fawad, you did well. So what I'm going to do is, I would like to check in with your previous employers with which you had a paid work, not the volunteer work. Oh, really? This is the most unexpected thing I could expect after having spent more than 1 year in a volunteer work. I almost had forgotten my previous workers, previous employer, so I had to rake up and reconnect with them and call them, please show mercy. I was thinking that what else is back to square one if this is what I was told didn't happen like that. Ladies and gentlemen, you would appreciate that in all parts of the world, they have their own pecking order as social. They are very particularistic about their social order, and that is legally and socially adhered to. When I came in Canada, I came from a patriarchal society where my father would hardly ask my mom about anything unless everything was decided and is good to go. And here I realized very early, and that was good for me. I saw the things are pretty lined up with the kids being the first because the government pays for them unless they reach the age of puberty, right? They turn 18. And then are the woman, the almighty woman. I would say that they have even special rights even in a conjugal relationship, and they can suspend the player right in the middle of it. You never know. And then I realized they are the pets, and at the end comes the almighty men. Ladies rules the roost. But I adjusted to this situation. And ladies and gentlemen, all this I realized it was not in vain, because I rediscovered myself in Canada. It was a saga of discovery, odyssey of love. And I realized that why is it important to have 5 to 7 years for you to become totally integrated into Canadian society, Canadian culture. This is a labor of love, much less a conscious effort. And I know myself, I am a lover, I am not a fighter. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.